I received a comment on one of my videos recently in regards to what I said in episode 8 of my Watch Dogs 2 series about the game being more of a Saints Row game than a Watch Dogs game, and I have many thoughts on the subject that I have to stop myself from ranting about each episode because it's an unrelated gameplay series and nobody wants to listen to me rant. Then again, if you're watching this, it means you want to listen to me rant, so I mean... But yeah, with so many thoughts in my head about the state of the gaming industry in 2022 and really about the state of art in general, I decided to try something new and a bit different on my channel by making one of those professional, fancy, scripted rant videos you'd see on other channels. Yes, this is scripted. I'm reading this all off of a text document right now. It took me quite a while. It's been like a few months since I started writing the script. That's what script means, right? You write down your thoughts and then you read them off later, right? Anyway, I was going to write them all down as a reply to that YouTube comment, but my keyboard quickly caught fire, and more importantly, I hit the character limit. So with that in mind, good time of day, be it morning, afternoon, or night, my name is username here, and I'd like to ask for a little bit of your time to talk about the creative bankruptcy in the gaming industry. It also applies to other industries, but we'll focus on gaming as that's the one I'm most familiar with. Also, before I start, here is your obligatory spoiler alert notice because we'll be going over story and mission elements in the following games. They should all be scrolling across the screen now. Yes, spoiler warning for all of these games. Now, let me start with a question. What is the biggest thing that defines a game, or any work of art, really? The thing that truly defines what the title means to you. Everyone will have a different answer. For some, it'll be the game's main plot, maybe a certain car in a racing game. Maybe a certain character you grew to love, or perhaps an impactful and tragic character death, speaking of characters. Or maybe an unscripted experience that only you had. Funny we talk about unscripted. Maybe a certain map that everyone always played multiplayer matches on, or a gun that everyone uses because it's really freaking good, and so forth. Whatever answer came to your mind, though, for whatever game or games you thought of, they all likely have a common theme to them. What they meant. Their meaning. How they made you feel. Because that's what art is. A game is not defined by its weapons or vehicles, not by its map or its physics engine, and most definitely not by its graphics. Now, the thing that defines a game is how it makes you feel. Happy, sad, distressed, content, joyful, angry, intense, nostalgic. Whatever your answer was to the question about what a game means to you probably had one or more of these emotions driving your answer. Maybe the reason that multiplayer map defines a game is because of the hours of fun you had on it. Maybe the reason that a specific weapon or vehicle came to mind is because it's the one you always use and you've had the most fun with it. Maybe it's all about nostalgia and a game transports you to a different time in your life and reminds you of home. Or maybe it's all because of how a game wanted you to feel. This is one of the most defining features of any good work of art, how it wants you to feel and what it wants you to take from it. We call these things the tone and the theme, respectively. The theme is the idea, the feeling, if you will, of a work of art. And there can be multiple themes running at once as well. There can be a wider theme that encompasses the entire art. In the case of a TV show, each episode or each season might have a changing theme, or maybe it'll have one continuous story with one overarching theme. Each character might have different themes in their character arcs individually. Different parts of the story might change themes. Heck, it's even possible to have an entire theme switch partway through the overall story. But returning to the theme of this video... Returning to the theme of this video, the problem is when the theme of a work of art becomes creative bankruptcy. You see it most on display in gaming. Arts are created with their own individual personalities and identities, but at a certain point nothing can stop the march of marketing, and eventually all of their meaning is ripped away and they all get homogenized into the format of being colorful, wacky, and ridiculous because that's what sells. Now I should mention that catering to the very core of what makes people enjoy games, fun, hilarious, unrealistic entertainment, is not inherently a bad thing. But when a game makes being hilarious and fun and entertaining and like that, when it makes that its entire theme across all aspects, it almost always sacrifices its own creativity and depth in order to do so. It happens across all industries, I see it all the time, but it's rampant in the gaming industry right now, and I can't think of a greater example of this in action than the catalyst for this video, Watch Dogs 2. Now, let me tell you a story about something that happened to me while playing Watch Dogs 2. I didn't get a chance to talk about it in the Watch Dogs 2 series itself or in the comments section of episode 8 in that series, but I wanted to reinforce my point about creative bankruptcy by telling you about this experience I had while playing one of Watch Dogs 2's early missions. Specifically the third mission of the Cyberdriver arc. In that mission, the one where the group paints definitely not Kit and builds a remote control system for it, after that you drive it around the streets of San Francisco blasting Turbo Lover while being chased by the police in essentially a race. Great song, by the way. As for the race, it sounds fun enough, but like, it just didn't have any meaning beyond that. No depth. It was shallow. It's funny as well, because I'm even a Judas Priest fan, and I've listened to Turbo Lover before I even knew it was in Watch Dogs 2, and not even 80s metal music was able to save this experience, because, like, there wasn't one. About halfway through the race, while driving around dodging police cars and listening to the newscasters talk about what I was doing, I just took a step back mentally from it, and thought about not only the immediate premise of the mission, but also the wider context, or lack thereof, and I just thought,
It's just stupid.
this is stupid. I just thought about how wacky and ridiculous it was to be doing this, and as much as it was pretty entertaining and fun, at the end of the day, that's all it was. Sure, it may be fun to drive a car around the streets of San Francisco blasting turbo lever while being chased by the police, but what was the feeling it gave? What was the theme? Pretty much the only meaning it really had was entertaining the player and being something fun to do. And once it was over, that was all she wrote. Like, I didn't feel satisfied or enlightened, and it didn't really bring anything to the table once I was back in free roam. It just kind of felt pointless. Yes, I know it was basically a publicity stunt to get followers for DedSec, but like, it just felt so empty and shallow. Couldn't DedSec have gotten a following by doing something more meaningful, and maybe like beneficial for the public? I mean, just have a listen to this line from Sitara, and yes, I know the characters' names now, it's kind of sad, from the mission Walk in the Park right at the beginning of the game.
That's what helps us figure out our next ops. And running ops that are important to people is how we get them interested in DedSec.
You said it yourself. You want to do things that are important to people. What could be more important than going after the things that make the ordinary citizen's life miserable? And yes, I know the main target of the story is the corporations, and you should want to go after them directly, but none of the characters ever take it seriously, and they all just laugh it off as a joke, and it's just dumb. What if you were taking lowering the crime rate into your own hands, or attacking the gangs directly, or taking an unlawful approach to the law and taking down corruption in the police? On a related note, I can't believe that there's a mission to retrieve a list of corrupt police officers from a gang hideout, except it's a co-op side mission that has no effect on your game. I mean, you turned your experience points into followers, and you have this theme / goal in the story of gaining a following for DedSec, but if you want people to follow you, shouldn't you do good things that benefit them? Freaking, this is the sequel to Watch Dogs 1 we're talking about, where it was done right. Where if you do morally good things like stop crime, then you have a reputation system that makes people like you more, or in other words, makes people follow you. My goodness, I didn't even realize how much of a missed opportunity this was until I started writing this script and making this video. I mean, it's right there in all the wording. You're fresh off the precedent that Watch Dogs 1 set with having a mechanic that reflected public opinion on the player, that could be raised by doing good things and lowered by being a genocidal maniac, and you could have done something similar for the second game, and instead we got this nonsense. By the way, as much as I think this would have been a much better thing to do with the game mechanics in the sequel, it's also worth noting in fairness to others that the reputation system is not for everyone, because some people just want to be a genocidal maniac and go on rampages and murder everyone in sight and get into shootouts and chases against an open world game's authorities and all kinds of stuff, and that's completely fair, and having a mechanic that actively punishes doing that in order to discourage it in favor of the intended playstyle is no bueno. Gamers are going to do whatever the flip you can think of, and even some things you can't even think of, and having mechanics to punish any of those things is bad by default. And this is coming from someone who very much enjoyed that reputation system and chose that playstyle, the operative word being chose. But anyway, enough about all that. This video isn't necessarily about the game's mechanics, as it is about its tone and theme. So, the thought I had about just how dumb it was to drive a car around the streets of San Francisco blasting turbo lever while being chased by the police wasn't the only thought I had while driving a car around the streets of San Francisco blasting turbo lever while being chased by the police. A minute or so after having that first thought, the sheer absurdity and cheap entertainment value hit me and I realized, quote, "This is stupid and ridiculous. This is Saints Row's thing. This wackiness doesn't belong in Watch Dogs, it belongs in a Saints Row game." It was then that I figured it all out. That's when I realized what was going on in the gaming industry. And that's when I finally saw just how homogenized modern games have become. They're all just empty. They've all gone down this path of throwing themselves under the bus and refusing to take anything seriously, sacrificing all their potential and their depth in the process. And they all do it just to inject cheap entertainment at every turn because being unique or memorable doesn't sell anymore. Daring to be your own thing is like too much of a risk. Instead, these games focus on catering to the basest instincts of the game or spoon-feeding them their own constant stream of hilarious, zany adventures that can hold you over like a snack, but never really leave you feeling like you've had an actual fulfilling meal. Rounding back to that point of homogenization, let's think about various open-world franchises and the games in them and think about what their themes are. What makes them unique? What gives them individuality? What makes them stand out from the rest? And above all, what makes you specifically want to play them over the others? We'll start with my absolute favorite non-Command & Conquer game of all time, which happens to be an open world game, Red Faction Guerrilla. Now, what does Red Faction Guerrilla bring to the table that makes it stand out from the rest? What makes it unique? Well, the science fiction world, the setting of Mars, the tone of oppression, and above all, the guerrilla revolutionary theme. The theme that is on full display in activities such as House Arrest, Guerrilla Raid, and EDF Assault. All of which give the game that defining guerrilla warfare theme that makes playing Red Faction Guerrilla unlike playing any other game of its genre. Red Faction Guerrilla truly captures the feeling of being a guerrilla fighter rebelling against an oppressive government and immerses you in that world, something that I have seen no other game do as effectively as of late, not even Just Cause. Also the destruction engine. Like, that definitely helps a lot. But the important thing to realize is that the destruction engine, while amazing, is only one of the game's defining pillars, if you will, that make Red Faction Guerrilla the amazing game it is. The game's guerrilla theme is amazing on its own, but it is enriched by the fact that you have the ability to engage with this theme by directly destroying the oppressive government's property through the medium of the destruction engine. Through the core gameplay, you literally tear down their regime, building by building, brick by brick, skull by skull. And the destruction engine, while still unrivaled to this day, would be nothing without that guerrilla theme that gives the destruction engine a purpose in gameplay. And speaking of that guerrilla theme, both of those things also wouldn't be what they are without the oppressive government itself, the Earth Defense Force. The guerrilla theme can't exist without an evil regime to justify a guerrilla uprising in the first place, and the destruction engine would never be what it is without an interesting, imposing, villainous force to use it against. As the enemies of the game and the antagonists of the story, they naturally play a role as one of the game's major pillars, and while they don't completely carry the game like some villain-focused works of fiction like Yuri's Revenge, the Tiberium series of Command & Conquer, Killzone, Fallout 2, or Star Wars Empire at War Forces of Corruption, to name a few, the EDF has everything a good villain faction needs to make you enjoy their presence in the game, and above all to support and enhance virtually every other aspect. Also, all of the other pillars of the game are pretty solid too. The gunplay is smooth and satisfying and some of the best I've seen in any game. The map and world design immerses you in the setting of Mars so well, especially in Parker. And while the characters and main story aren't earth-shattering, they don't have to be earth-shattering to be good, just Mars-shattering. Every single aspect of Red Faction Guerrilla is just so well designed, and each one serves a purpose in making the game a complete and, might I say, virtually perfect experience. I could talk about my favorite non-RTS game for hours, but this is a video about Watch Dogs 2 and about the gaming industry, so why am I telling you about Red Faction Guerrilla and what makes it so incredible in the first place? Well, this balancing act, pun intended, is a perfect showcase of when a game and all its aspects have proper design and art direction. When they all have one common purpose, one common direction, I said direction again, but it's a good word for this, shut up, and when they all have one common theme. The theme of Red Faction Guerrilla is simple. It is an open-world, guerrilla warfare-themed destruction simulator. And every single aspect of the game, from Alec Mason himself to the iconic destruction mechanic down to the way the map looks, are all extensions of this one core theme. And this is what I want you to pay attention to as we talk about several different games in this video. And also, I would also like you to pay attention to it when you're thinking about just any game in general, regardless of whether or not it was mentioned in this video. Because this is what it's like when a game is something, for lack of a better word. When a game focuses on being something and giving you an experience, and just when a game has a theme, has soul, for lack of a better word. Let's go with that. When it has soul. You know, because one of the most common words used to describe, like, the new awful games that are being put out nowadays is soulless. Anyway, now how about my favorite open world franchise? Not game, franchise. The legendary Just Cause. Now, I love Just Cause almost as much as I love Red Faction Guerrilla. So what does Just Cause bring to the table that makes it unique? The theme of revolution. But not the same theme as in Red Faction Guerrilla, mind you. A similar one, yes. But in this game, you play as an agent of the fictional agency, the Agency, because names are hard, and you use your expertise on regime change to blow up a tyrannical government and support its rebel faction. Red Faction Guerrilla is so similar a concept that I often call it Just Cause on Mars, but what sets these games apart despite being almost the same thing? Their themes, of course, and the elements inside the game. I mean, just look at the cover art for Just Cause 1 inspired by this portrait of famous Argentinian revolutionary Che Guevara. How about this sound design, or this Latin American environment, or the fact that the clip I'm about to show you has both of them in the same clip? fact that Just Cause 1 has such a strong setting that they were committed to in everything down to the first thing you see in the fricking box art right here, hand reveal by the way, is honestly what makes the first game my favorite to this day. That and the nostalgia, of course, as I played it for hours upon hours before Just Cause 3 came out. From fighting the San Espirito military to liberating settlements to saving rare vehicles to simply road tripping around the country in order to move vehicles between garages. During those days in 2013 and 2014, it was the best Just Cause game there was out. It was the best Just Cause game that was out at the time. It was the best. But what about the other games? We're talking about Just Cause as a franchise, as a whole, after all. Sorry I went off on a tangent to talk about how Just Cause 1's setting is so strong because it's my favorite Just Cause game, surprisingly enough. I'm probably the only person in the world who has that opinion. Anyway, when you play a Just Cause game, what do you think of? Well, probably the iconic grappling hook mechanic, which, by the way, is what mechanically sets it apart from every other game of its genre, including Red Faction Guerrilla. That's one of the main ways that neither game can be considered a clone of the other, because as much as they're both about destroying things that belong to an oppressive government, the way you go about destroying these things is very different. But this is about themes again, not necessarily mechanics, so what's the theme of Just Cause that makes it stand out from the rest? Civil war, liberation, chaos and destruction and destabilization of political authority. I mean, frick, there's a political stability map in the first Just Cause game! Just Cause is so successful because it takes the havoc that players love to wreak in games and it makes it the core gameplay and the main theme of the game. Topped off with a military to fight that comes chock full of fun instruments of havoc and destruction to play with once you've borrowed them for your own malicious uses, you have the legendary Just Cause that provides endless destructive fun and does so through... Anyway, now let's talk about a very different open-world game franchise, Mafia. Unlike Just Cause, this is a much quieter game with fewer explosions. Okay, maybe there's some explosions. But one of the biggest differences between Just Cause and Mafia is that I play Just Cause, but I don't actually play Mafia. However, I have actually played the Steam demos for Mafia 2 and 3, which is the footage you're seeing right here. And I've also seen a full playthrough of Mafia 2 on YouTube, so I think I have a decent enough grasp on what the themes for the Mafia games are if they're about the mob life. Well, in the early to mid-20th century, but let's start with the mob life. They're about how crime never pays. The theme of the Mafia series is how the mob life offers up everything you've ever wanted on a silver platter: money, a nice car according to other people, a nice house, but make no mistake, this road to the top is paved with the blood of the innocent. Sooner or later, you realize it was never meant to last, and everything you thought you had is gone in an instant. Even your loyal friends can turn on you if you don't turn on them first. The core theme of Mafia is how crime never pays, and if you let yourself get into that mob life, it'll swallow you whole until you're in far too deep to ever have a hope of getting out. And even if you do get out, you haven't. You never will. Also, obviously, we can't talk about the Mafia games without mentioning the setting. The main thing that sets the Mafia games apart from their genre peers is the fact that they are set in the early to mid-20th century, and the games take special care in replicating the aesthetic, culture, and general feeling of those time periods. Not just that, it's also known for having hyper-realistic police mechanics, at least in the first and second games, that allow for much more interactivity than just being attacked on sight, something that sets it apart mechanically as well. I mean, name another open-world crime game in which you can get pulled over and fined for speeding in vanilla without mods. Heck, even not having this system in Mafia 3 could be considered another attention to detail in the setting of the game, as Lincoln is a black man in the American South in 1968, and let's face it, police in the American South in 1968, they're probably not very interested in giving out speeding tickets to non-whites. It could also be considered a loss of identity, but we'll get to that. These things make the Mafia games so incredibly distinct from not only other games of the genre, but also even from each other. Just think about how different Mafia 1, 2, and 3 feel, and not just for normal reasons the game would feel different from its sequels like better mechanics and graphics. The attention to detail given to each game's specific time period coupled with their crime never pays storylines are what give the Mafia games their personality and character. It's what helps them find their own individuality in the genre and what makes them unique. So, let's bring things back to the present day by talking about the franchise that refined and defined the genre, Grand Theft Auto. Taking place in highly satirical fictionalizations of the most well-known cities in the continental United States, Grand Theft Auto by no means invented the open-world crime genre, but the 2001 release of Grand Theft Auto 3 took the series out of the top-down perspective, even though it's still an option, by the way, and took the genre itself into the modern age. But at the time, it didn't have 5 other franchises to compare itself to, the closest being Driver, with Driver 2 released a year earlier in 2000, and as a result, it had free reign on what to do with itself and what to do with its theme. And what is the theme of the Grand Theft Auto franchise? Yes, they vary by game. But what's the core theme that they all commonly share? That's actually a question that I had a lot of trouble answering myself. During the development process for this video, I gave this question a lot of thought, but after playing a whole bunch of GTA and recording all the footage that you're seeing here, I eventually figured out what, as I understand it, the core theme of Grand Theft Auto is. As for gameplay, it's kind of a jack of all trades of sorts, in my opinion. When compared to other games like Saints Row, Just Cause, or Mafia, those games sort of have specializations within the genre, being about gang warfare, guerrilla warfare, and mob warfare respectively. And GTA doesn't really have a specialization like that, but it seems like it adopts a sort of broad approach to the genre, and you can get a little bit of everything from it if you look hard enough. But what about its core individuality, identity, and personality? What really makes Grand Theft Auto Grand Theft Auto? Satire. For me, GTA is essentially the open world game equivalent of an Adult Swim cartoon. It's a caricature of real life, a cynical and pessimistic parody that exaggerates the filth, debauchery, and moral bankruptcy in the real world, and makes doing that the core identity of the franchise. Virtually everyone you can meet in the games, they're all corrupt, self-serving, and generally just terrible human beings to the point where finding an honorable, morally good character is almost laughable. And as if that wasn't bad enough, the game is littered with all kinds of instances of adult juvenile humor that for people like me who don't find it particularly amusing, it gets really grating. I think the best way to put it all into words is that GTA games after I play them, and I mean even the 3D GTA games that have a decent amount of color, not just GTA 4, which is essentially grayscale, they always seem to leave me with a strange feeling of emptiness, and I think that's because the game itself is kind of empty in a way, both in the meta sense and in the world itself. The whole point of GTA really is to be a caricature of real life, but if a work of art's entire purpose and identity is to mock and be a parody of something else, on one hand that's completely fair and a valid type of identity for a work of fiction to have, but it's also a dependent one that relies on the player's real-world experiences and or opinions in order to land. As a prime example of what I'm trying to say, let's look at a couple of things in GTA 5, and by the way, there will not be footage of GTA 5 for this section because I'm pretty sure I would rather get struck by lightning than play GTA 5. Firstly, the fictional social media network Life Invader, which has risen to prominence by the time of the game, which of course is a parody of real-world social media networks like Facebook and Twitter, with the name itself being a rather unsubtle jab at the idea that these social media networks allow people to display every aspect of their life publicly, and allow others to see into those very public lives of users. Or how about Jimmy, who's shown to be spending most of... Is that his name, Jimmy? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's his name. I don't care enough to look it up. Or how about Jimmy, who's shown to be spending most of his free time playing a fictional FPS game called Righteous Slaughter 7 and insulting people over voice. Which, by the way, is actually a quadruple parody in a way. Firstly, of the American cultural stereotype of the lazy person that stays in their parents' home all day playing games with no real interest in getting a life of their own. Secondly, of the Call of Duty franchise's popularity of multiplayer itself. Well, the popularity of the Call of Duty franchise's multiplayer, yeah, I kind of wrote that wrong in the script, whatever. Thirdly, of the toxic gamer culture that can often be easily found in such games like Call of Duty. And fourthly, even the title of the fictional franchise itself, Righteous Slaughter, and the fact that if I'm not mistaken, you play as an American soldier or something, and you're like, I don't know, in the Middle East, probably, one of those. That is, of course, a parody of the concepts of American centrism and American exceptionalism, with American centrism being the phenomena of works of fiction, like games in particular, being overly written from an American perspective, with American exceptionalism being the myth that the United States is the greatest country in the world that can do no wrong, and it's essentially exempt from moral scrutiny and is always in the right simply for being the United States. But the idea I'm trying to get at here is imagine if you didn't have any of this information or you didn't live in the United States or even on Earth at all. These things just wouldn't land for you. You wouldn't get the joke, essentially. And that's what GTA is, really. It's a caricature. It all falls flat if you don't get the joke, and if you do get the joke, it pulls you out of the game and into reality a little bit because it's like it's relying on something in real life in order for the point it's trying to make to work. And it detracts from the game itself. It should be noted that there's nothing inherently wrong with doing this. Just Cause, as an example, is one of my favorite games of all time, and it started as a pretty unsubtle caricature of the United States' foreign policy in the latter half of the 20th century, with equally unsubtle inspiration drawn from Latin American guerrilla movements and, of course, Che Guevara himself. But the thing is, there's a difference between something being a parody of something else, or being based on or inspired by something else. For GTA, the entire flippant thing start to finish is a parody of real life, whereas Just Cause is more or less only a little bit of a parody here and there, and more towards the based on / inspired by end of the spectrum. And overall, at the end of the day, I think that's one of the big reasons why I don't like GTA as a whole compared to other franchises. Not to detract from the main theme of this video here. Ha! But every time I play a GTA game except GTA 4, I often eventually just get a grating feeling of emptiness because it's hard to find GTA's true independent personality because really there isn't one. As I just explained, GTA in a way is not really a standalone game, and for me the jokes and parodies either don't land or they're just something I don't really care for in general, like something that's just not gonna, something that's just not really gonna do it for me. Someone else might think it's the funniest thing in the world, and me, I'm just like, I don't care, I don't really, I'm not enthusiastic about having that sort of thing in my game. And as a result of all that, I get that empty feeling a lot playing the games of the 3D universe of GTA, because in some ways it feels like all the meaning the world, and maybe even the game in some ways, may have had before has been strangled, stripped away, and just corrupted by this theme almost of just being a character. Remember those words, by the way, they'll come up later. Couple more things to talk about before I move on from GTA. I know I wrote all this mostly based on San Andreas and 3, and that's reflected by the fact that most of the footage seen here was San Andreas and 3, but I want to give special mention and focus to GTA 4 for bringing the series into a new light, or should I say dark, by essentially scrubbing the color out of their color palette and creating a much more dark and depressing tone. For the purposes of creating this video and a few other reasons, I actually finished GTA 4 at long last recently, and now that I've formed a proper opinion on the game, honestly, it's kind of a mixed bag for me. On one hand, it's clear that GTA 4 tried to sideline all of the franchise's usual caricature elements in favor of creating a much bleaker atmosphere, and while it had some limited success in achieving that, in other aspects, it did not. But now that I've finally finished the game and experienced the story that most GTA fans hail as the best and darkest in the series, I can definitely see where they're coming from, but honestly, in my opinion, the game really did its best to try to establish its own space for its individualism, identity, and independence to flourish and bring something new to the table for the GTA franchise, but ultimately it was just unable to escape the fact that its title has Grand Theft Auto in it, and it being a Grand Theft Auto title as a result, more or less it just kind of became a hybrid between the new it was trying to create and the old that came before. Now don't get me wrong, I actually do like the game. The times when it was good, it was very good, and unlike the rest of the franchise's installments, there were genuine moments where I found myself engaged and invested in the story and the characters, which is absolutely unheard of for me playing GTA games. But at the end of the day, the old and the new just clashed so hard for me throughout the process that, as a result, all the darkness the game was trying to convey just kind of got bogged down by the fact that it was also a GTA game in the end. And in some ways it felt like the game was having an identity crisis the whole way through. Some missions would just be for absolutely ridiculous people doing absolutely ridiculous things that would be reminiscent of something from GTA 3 or Vice City, and other missions would reach levels of engaging storytelling that I've never seen in a GTA game before or since. And overall, as a result of that, it just kind of pulled the rest of the game down for me. That's my opinion on the game. If it wasn't a GTA game, it would probably be really good. I would like it. But the fact that it is a GTA game, it's held back by the fact that it is a GTA game at the end of the day. And I think if it wasn't part of the GTA franchise, I'd probably like it a lot more. A lot of this, by the way, it's worth mentioning, is thanks to Niko Bellic, a character that is very well written with an interesting story, and who really strikes me as a character from something else entirely, who found himself in a GTA game and hates every second of it.
Ramen! Are you sleeping, you fat fuck? Come on!
It's pretty funny to me how he's surrounded by just full-on Grand Theft Auto characters through and through, just absolute stereotypes. Stereotypes, caricatures, all different kinds of just ridiculousness, run-of-the-mill, dime a dozen GTA characters that you would see across any GTA game pretty much, that are just completely full of themselves and full of nonsense, and Niko has absolutely no patience for any of it. He scoffs at them and rolls his eyes, then demands they spare him the lecture and cut to the chase so he can get his mission and be on his way to finding that special someone. He genuinely does feel out of place in the game in the best way, and that checks out in the lore as well, because unlike every other protagonist in the series up to that point, he's the only one who isn't actually from the United States. Do you think his shoulders are okay, by the way, or do you think they've disintegrated into a fine powder as a result of him carrying the entire game on his back? Also, one more last thing to talk about before we move on from GTA. I can't talk about tones and themes in a video like this and be talking about GTA at the same time without giving Vice City its due, because even though it suffers from the same issues I just explained being part of the 3D universe, there's definitely something to be said about a game that brought the 80s back for a visit with iconic art design in its setting, color palette, and of course, music. It's got such a strong setting that can be seen in everything from the UI to the vehicles to the pop culture references to the music again, and of course the fact that it takes place in a fictionalized Miami, which is hailed as a perfect location for a game set in 1986, that it's widely regarded as the best in the franchise. Personally, I've barely ever played it though, so I'm sorry to say it won't be getting much more attention than this paragraph, but it'd be a crime as well, pun intended, if I just glossed over its existence entirely, so shout out to Vice City. Alright, now that I've spent far too much time talking about GTA, let's go to the other side of the open world coin with the franchise that took on GTA and then proceeded to shoot itself in the foot and then in the head, Saints Row. Ah, Saints Row. How the mighty have fallen. Before we go any further, I have to mention the elephant in the room. Saints Row is quite possibly one of the worst and most serious offenders when it comes to the concept of homogenization and self-destruction of identity that I've been talking about, because Saints Row did it not once but twice. This series started off so good and then proceeded to become one of the most spectacular falls from grace ever seen in the history of video games and quite possibly media in general. A true industry tragedy that will be talked about for years to come. And it did this twice. Heck, maybe even 3 times if you count Agents of Mayhem. Jeez, I freaking cleaned up messes in Viscera cleanup detail that weren't as bad as what this series did to itself. Make a whole video on Saints Row and the reboot alone and it would probably be twice as long as this one. But anyway, enough about all that. Let's talk about the identity of Saints Row, specifically the older games, and let's ask the same questions we've been asking for the previous franchises. What makes Saints Row, specifically Saints Row 1 and 2, Saints Row? What makes this game unique? What gives it its individualism and identity over other franchises in the genre? There are multiple answers, in fact, but one of the most important answers is gang warfare. Other games of this type you play as a criminal, doing jobs for other criminals higher in the food chain, but with those games you don't really have deep ties to the organizations you're working for. You're there to collect a dirty paycheck and be on your merry way. But in Saints Row, the investment factor is much higher. You aren't here to make money or serve yourself, you're here for your gang. The Third Street Saints, they're the deuteragonist of the story, and you're the tip of the spear. And that's what brings so much more meaning to the game, the world, and the story. You're out here representing with Saints Purple, unless you're like me and you gravitate towards non-criminal factions for some reason. And your goal isn't to increase the number next to the $ on the screen. Your goal is to conquer the streets and drop any member of a hostile gang that you come across, because this is your city, these are your streets, and you make your own rules. And together with characters that are just brimming with personality, iconic names like Johnny Gat, Dex, Pierce, Marrow, Dane Vogel, Jules...
And don't call me Jules, you haven't earned it.
...and Julius Little, you get an experience unlike any other open world game on the market to date. As I write this, I just realize how full of personality Saints Row is, with both its characters, its world, its attitude, heck, even down to the frickin' gang vehicles. And it all results in an unmatched investment factor that brings you into the world of these characters, immersing you in ways that other games of the genre like GTA could never hope to achieve, with iconic moments of betrayal, tragedy, hilarity, and psychopathy that still stick with its fans to this day. Heck, even the nameless protagonist you play as has just as much personality as everyone else, to the point where they're one of the most iconic characters in the series too, despite Ludi not even having a name.
Why you gotta be an asshole?
How the frick did they manage to write a character that the player can seamlessly insert themselves into like any customizable protagonist and still have them occupy their own space and be one of the most iconic characters in the game at the same time, without clashing with each other? How the frick did they do that? How? How?
Good idea.
Don't you care who sent it?
Nope.
But it's probably a trap.
Yep.
I just said all of that praise without even getting to the main thing that people in general praise Saints Row for, and that's the fact that when it comes time for Saints Row to choose its tone, it looks at both the serious and silly options and says, why not both? Saints Row's tone walks that fine line in a way no other franchise does, and it boils down to the fact that it knows when and where to place both its seriousness and its silliness, and does so without fail. The way it accomplishes this is that it knows where the hilarity in a video game comes from. It comes from the gameplay and the player itself, and it knows that the seriousness of a video game comes from its story, its cutscenes, its characters, and its world. Understanding where these two fundamental elements of a video game come from allows Saints Row 2 to keep them in perfect balance, and that's where you get the split that everyone praises the game for. I think that's the big secret. The game's world takes itself very seriously, whether through its cutscene, story, or character interactions, but when you get back into the gameplay, that's where the hilarity ensues. As an example of this split in action, let's have a look at some introductory cutscenes for the game's most iconic activities, and then look at the actual gameplay of those activities.
You have a lovely office.
Please, do you really think I'd meet you anywhere public? Look on the bright side. At least we're not on a boat.
I'm glad you can joke about your husband's death.
I'm crying on the inside, I assure you.
What do you want?
Justice.
Then call the cops.
I said I wanted justice.
Who pissed you off?
Ultors made fortunes by standing on the shoulders of my husband. The gentrification of Saints Row was first referred to as the Hughes Initiative, then the Ultor Hughes Initiative, and now just the Ultor Initiative. My husband's legacy has been stolen, and if I can't benefit from it, neither can Ultor. I want you to devalue their property.
I'm gonna need the name of the septic company the city's got a contract with.
Why do you need to know that?
You'll see.
How you doing? Dr. Raymond Gonzalez says you're highly recommended.
How is the doc?
Oh, that stunt you pulled with him landed him in jail.
Oh, sorry.
Don't worry about it. He was a dick. Anyway, I was wondering if you could run the same insurance scam with me.
Didn't you just say Gonzalez got thrown in jail? Why would you want to try the same thing?
How about you worry about throwing yourself in front of cars, and I worry about not getting arrested?
Suit yourself.
You see what I'm getting at here? The literal mayor of the fricking city of Stillwater is out for revenge in the cutscene, and then whoops, I'm flying 200 meters because I flopped on the back of a truck, weird. I just watched my vengeful, vindictive friend bury alive the guy who got his girlfriend killed, and whoops, now I'm chainsawing someone in half for the in-universe spoof of Cops. But aside from the fact that the game achieves balance between seriousness and stupidity through putting all the hilarity in the gameplay and taking itself very seriously at every other time, I think one of the main reasons it works so well is that at the end of the day, it keeps itself grounded. Even though it's very ridiculous and over the top most of the time, it still doesn't quite feel like it because everything that happens is either plausible in real life or at the very least framed as such. Committing insurance fraud by throwing yourself into cars is actually a real thing. Sure, it's cranked up to 11 and you wouldn't go flying like this in real life, but technically what you're doing is a real thing that can happen in real life and people have done and also gone to jail for, probably. I'm not a lawyer, I don't know how insurance fraud laws work in real life. Like, for all I know, the punishment for it is a fine. I don't know, who knows. But anyway, as another perfect example, let's look at the game's ultimate antagonist, the Ultor Corporation. Did you know there are private security companies like it in the real world? And there are even private military corporations with access to much more powerful toys than the Tornado? So stupid and over the top as everything is, somehow it all still stays grounded. There aren't any aliens or zombies or an ending where you fight a frickin' helicarrier. By the way, I love that mission. Just a cast of characters that are absolutely brimming with personality and ruthless cunning who steal the show in every scene they're in with such freaking exceptional character writing that honestly makes them some of the most memorable characters in gaming history. Fun fact, this scene with Dane Vogel's fall from grace was actually foreshadowing for what happened to the series itself. I know, right? Crazy writing. And speaking of falls from grace, let us at long last take a closer look at the series that served as the catalyst for this entire video and this entire in-depth look at the state of gaming in the modern age, Watch Dogs. Specifically for the sake of this video, I will be talking about Watch Dogs 1 and saving the other Watch Dogs games for later. Now, I have to say, I didn't really think too much of Watch Dogs 1 when I first heard about it and got it. I thought it was just going to be another open world game, with hacking being the unique spin this time that would set it apart from other games of the genre. I've been talking about how games can be different from one another through their game mechanics, specifically how Just Cause and Red Faction Guerrilla are the same sort of idea but are also very different because one has a grappling hook and the other one has a sledgehammer, and for Watch Dogs the hacking is that mechanic that makes it different from its peers in the industry. That's what makes it unique. That's what makes it a uniquely Watch Dogs experience to play that you can't get playing any other game. But that's only how it's unique mechanically. How about its tone and its theme? Well, right off the bat, you aren't a criminal this time. You're a vigilante on a mission for revenge. Yes, it may have all the standard mechanics of being a criminal, like a heat level that causes progressively stronger authorities. I almost said enemies. That actually would have worked too. That causes progressively stronger authorities to attack you, stealing cars, and generally committing crime in an open world city. But this time you aren't doing it for your own personal gain. You're doing it because you have to in order to find the people who took everything from you. The end justifies the means, as they say. It's a unique vigilante twist on the open world genre where the protagonist dives headfirst into the misery and darkness of the criminal underworld, because when your heart is already as black as stone, then you have nothing to lose and everything to gain from staring directly into the abyss. It really makes you feel like you're in a different world than the civilian next to you, and things like the game's dark color palette and Aiden Pierce's gruff, world-weary voice make it all that much darker. And on top of all of that, Watch Dogs did something that no other open world game has done as of late. At least I think. Like, for all I don't know personally. Haven't been involved in the gaming industry in a few years. It changed the meaning of crime and showed the full extent of just how abhorrent, despicable, and even disturbing that crime can be. For us who have likely never been involved in a world like that, what we see the criminals do in Watch Dogs is sickening. But for Aiden, he's not fazed by it anymore. He's desensitized to it. He's used to it. That's like, when you stare into the abyss stares back. That's like the whole point of the game. And it's kind of funny because people think that Aiden being all like dark and miserable and, the gruff voice, people all think that's boring. No, that's the point. That's the point of the game. But anyway, all of this to me is what really set Watch Dogs apart from the rest and what made it a really interesting experience that I honestly didn't expect going into it. It's what established the game's identity. Frick me, my alarm, it's 7 a.m. a.m. p.m. Anyway. But yeah, it's what established the game's identity. It's what picked up my interest, perhaps most importantly. Having a soul earned a new fan. That's like the point. Well, I don't know if I would call myself a fan of Watch Dogs, but it's a good game. I like it. But anyway. So yeah, it's what established the game's identity, picked up my interest, and above all, it's what really made Watch Dogs Watch Dogs. And look at what happened to it. Look at it. Look at the franchise now. I said Watch Dogs really weird just then. But yeah, that's what made Watch Dogs to me. And look at the franchise now. Look at what happened. Anyway, now that I'm done talking your ear off about these 6 open world franchises, well actually Red Faction Guerrilla is a single game, so we'll just leave that one out. Anyway, now that I'm finished talking about these 6 open world franchises and how they established their identities and set themselves apart from one another, I want to ask a favor of you. I want you to think about what happened to all of these franchises and where they are now, and you'll see a pattern. GTA started with a cynical attitude and satire to spare. Now it has jet bikes with missiles and hover cars and a freaking Batmobile and a hovering DeLorean, and basically the list of vehicles and weapons in the game look like the freaking action figure aisle of a department store. Mafia, well, even though I honestly don't know much about the series as I have none of the games, I definitely felt like Mafia 3 when I played the demo for the purposes of this video was a different franchise entirely from Mafia 1 and 2, as it didn't really have that same Mafia feeling as the first 2 games. Plus, it didn't really have the police mechanics of the first 2 games either, and it made the police bloodthirsty just like every other game, so... But, was that a design choice, or was that a loss of identity, or maybe a little of both? I don't know. But anyway, Just Cause, well, there's honestly nothing wrong with the Just Cause franchise in this regard, and I love all 4 of the games, even Just Cause 4, which people think is awful, and it definitely had some things that didn't sit right with me. But honestly, if you compare Just Cause 1's hyper-focus on the Latin American revolutionary setting, then compare it to some of the stuff in Just Cause 3 and 4, you can tell it's not quite the exact same game anymore. Now again, I love all 4 of the games, even Just Cause 4, which people don't really like, and yes, it has some things I'm not particularly a huge fan of, but you can't deny that some of the industry patterns are present in Just Cause as well, and some of the changes that the later games made over the earlier ones aren't always for the better. You'll see, I'll mention this later, you'll see what I mean. Saints Row started as a game about gangs, betrayal, and whoops, I just bonked my skull on someone's front bumper and made money for it. And now it has a helicarrier mission, a zombie island, and a freaking alien invasion. And Watch Dogs as a franchise put its best foot forward in 2014 by establishing itself as a vigilante take on the open world genre, creating a very dark and even disturbing world where the moral bankruptcy of crime itself is the main antagonist. So what does Watch Dogs 2 do? It gets rid of everything that made the first game so good and replaces it with this. Are you guys seeing the patterns here? I mean, frick, you don't even fight any of the street gangs in the former half of Watch Dogs 2, where in Watch Dogs 1 they're the main antagonists of the story. I'm 57% of the way through Watch Dogs 2 as of making this video, and there's only been one mission arc that's had you fight one of the 5 street gangs, not counting Prime 8 because they're a rival hacker group, and I hesitate to call them a gang in the first place. You've made a world with half a dozen different factions, each of which could have had their own unique backstories and reasons why the player should care about destroying them. You could have had mission arcs specifically for each of them. You could have made such a good sequel to the first game, and instead DedSec just runs around doing random stupid nonsense for the sake of making a spectacle and making a frickin' fool of themselves. Are you guys seeing what I'm getting at? All of these franchises came into the market and established an identity for themselves, a theme, something to set them apart from one another, and then eventually they all followed this pattern and they became homogenized. They compromised themselves and their identities by becoming nothing more than cheap, shallow, colorful entertainment with no meaning and no direction, and now as a result, they're all the same. They feel the same, they play the same, their themes are all the same, just wacky nonsense for the sake of wacky nonsense. They don't take themselves seriously anymore, they don't expect you to take any of it seriously anymore, and then they just expect to be loved and praised. Heck, I mean, frickin' imagine if you were like, you know, if someone told you in 2008 when Saints Row 2 and GTA 4 were coming out that eventually both of those franchises would have jet bikes in them in the next few years. Well, I mean, I don't actually know when the jet bike update for GTA Online, whatever. This is what I meant when this right here is exactly what I meant when I used the exact words colorful and stupid in the 8th episode of the Watch Dogs 2 Police series. All of these games have adopted an aesthetically flashy color palette with these bright shades of magenta, yellow, and light blue, and they've sacrificed their own established art design and setting and art direction and everything else in order to have whatever over-the-top absurdities they see fit to have that day, which typically I notice takes on the form of sci-fi technologies like those frickin' jet bikes. You know, there's nothing wrong with jet bikes in general, but when you have them in a frickin', like, modern game about gangs, come on! And by the way, this is what I meant about how the later Just Cause games aren't quite the same game as the first game. Because as much as I love all of the Just Cause games, and they're all really good, you can't deny that the sort of sci-fi technology pattern is one of the staples of a game losing its identity. And I mean, you know, Just Cause 3 has a magic resource that makes shields. Nothing said. Well, it's kind of a little weird, honestly. It's a little weird, honestly, because like I like the new Just Cause games. I like Just Cause 3 and 4, but I still see this pattern, and I still see things about Just Cause 4 that, you know. I mean, just look at the screen just look at the freaking screen right now with this Army of Chaos tank. That, you know, it's the Army of Anyway, enough about that. I went quite off script with that, but yeah. But yeah, just before I move on with the script, because this is all unscripted, Just Cause 4, as much as I love it, like, there's a decent chunk of these industry trends in it. And that's what I was talking about earlier, about how it has some things I don't like. Like, for example, one of the main things that I'm thinking of is the Army of Chaos. I did not like the Army of Chaos at all, because I just see so many of these industry trends in the Army of Chaos. A couple of them I will start talking about here in a second, but the main thing I'm thinking of right now is, as a perfect example almost, is I just had this whole conversation really about how one of the main things that you see in a game when a game is going down this path is that it stops taking itself seriously. It just kind of laughs off everything, and it kind of stops being, you know, a thing. And I definitely see that with the Army of Chaos. Like, you know, like the guerrillas from Just Cause 1, they had a presence. They felt real. They felt all those things. Same with all 3 of the factions Just Cause 2 and with the Rebellion in Just Cause 3. But then the Army of Chaos comes along, and even though the characters take it seriously, like they're all very much devoted to, you know, fighting against the Black Hand on Solis, the name really. And their aesthetic and their design and all that just very much does not sit right with me. Because, you know, instead of feeling like a proper rebel faction now, just the name Army of Chaos almost makes it sound like it's the player's personal army of destruction. You know what I mean? They're kind of teetering a little bit towards the whole chaos gameplay thing, and they're starting to make an element of the world cater to the gameplay style. And as I just talked about with how Saints Row 2 does it, that's no bueno. Also, another part of the industry pattern is color, but I'm going to talk, I have like a whole bunch of paragraphs on that here in a second, but, you know, just keep that in mind as you look at what the Army of Chaos vehicles look like. And fun fact, just a second ago, I actually looked up, like, a picture of it so I can remember what they look like. It's been a little while since I played Just Cause 4. There's a mod to get rid of it and make it look realistic. So I'm clearly not the only one with that opinion. But anyway, all of this talking about Just Cause 3 and 4, that was all completely off script. This video is not about Just Cause. This video is primarily about Watch Dogs. So, I will now go back to reading the script here. And yes, heading back on script, all of these games, all of their meaning, all the meaning that they used to have was strangled, stripped away, and corrupted. Told you that'd come up later. And now all that's left is shadows of their former selves. Like, that's just all that's left, is just shadows. They're just nothing. They have everything stripped away, like I just said. Why is this happening? Why are AAA game companies doing this? I, for one, think it's most likely marketing trends. They go where the money is, and colorful and stupid is what catches your eye, I've been told. And above all, it's what sells. After all, Watch Dogs 2 has a higher rating on Steam than Watch Dogs 1. Man, frickin'... Yeah, I have some opinions on that one, but anyway. Even though this video is specifically focused on open world games, this problem is affecting the whole industry. Even outside the open world genre, there are franchises being ruined by this same marketing pattern of who can be flashiest. Yeah, I told you I was going to talk about colors here in a second. And here's the best part. This pattern was written all over Saints Row 2022. Here's its cover. The moment I looked at this cover, I saw the frickin' rainbow-colored, flashy color scheme, and I knew it was going to be a flaming pile of cat litter. Everyone wanted to give it a chance, but I saw the marketing trends the moment I saw the cover, and what do you know? I was right. It was a flaming pile of cat litter. Oh, but it gets so much worse than that. If you thought the open world games' homogenization was bad, let's have a look at the entire industry. Here are 6 different screenshots from 6 different, relatively recent games. Can you guess which one is Saints Row 2022? Or how about which one is Watch Dogs 2? I'll give you a second to think about it. Now I've added more games. I'll give you a hint. Watch Dogs 2 is the one with magenta, yellow, and light blue in it. Are you still not sure? There, I've added labels. Or more specifically, editing username here is added labels. Thank you for that, editing username here. I'm just narrating. You see this? But anyway, yeah, you see this trash? To the untrained eye, Watch Dogs 2 could have been any one of these games because they all look the same. And that's what I mean with the whole color palette and the whole color scheme thing that I was referring to. The exact meaning behind when I use the exact word colorful all the way back in episode 8 of the Watch Dogs 2 series and what I'm saying now. This is what I mean. This is the big industry pattern. There's also the sci-fi technology thing. But this is the industry pattern that I keep seeing and I keep recognizing across all the industry. It's still on your screen right now. All of these games look the same because a lot of them just seem to adopt this flashy, like, just this flashy magenta, yellow, blue color scheme. All 3 of these colors, they just come up everywhere. I don't know why. The entire game, well, I do know why. Marketing trends, they want to look flashy, I'm sure. At least that's what I've been told by a friend of mine. But you know, like, that's the pattern. All of these different games, they have these same 3 colors. They show up every time. They show up so often and just, that's it. That's what I mean by homogenation. They're all doing this same pattern. They're all ceasing to take themselves seriously. They're all getting these sci-fi technologies because it sells, I guess. You know, it's flashy and ridiculous. And of course, this color scheme is also flashy and ridiculous. And you can see, like right here, they have the same aesthetic. That's the thing. When you have a game that has art direction and a theme and a tone, one of the main things that will carry it is the aesthetic. It will be the art direction, it will be the color palette, and those things. And these games that are all on your screen right now, they have all of them. They have the same one. You can't even tell them apart anymore. Leave in the comments right now which one you thought was Watch Dogs 2, or which one you thought was Saints Row 2022. But they all look the same. They have the same color palette. That's what I'm talking about. They don't have their own separate color palettes anymore because they don't have their own separate identities anymore. They don't have their own individualism. They don't have their own identity. They don't have their own art direction. They don't have anything left. They're all just the same thing. They are homogenized. They are homogenized. They are all the exact same. This is what I mean when I say colorful and stupid. They're all doing this. They have no soul anymore, no art direction, no meaning, no purpose, and they have nothing to bring to the table besides something to fill up your time. And having these bright shades of magenta, yellow, and light blue is clearly, as I just said, probably a business marketing tactic. They do this for more exposure and profit because the idea is to be flashy and catch your eye, I've been told. But in doing so, these games lose and compromise their original visions in the process. All of them, they used to be something, now they're just meaningless entertainment. I mean, oh my freaking goodness, here we go. I just got to this part of the script. Here, just take a look at the cover art for Rage 1 compared to the cover art for Rage 2. Frick me, what did they do to Rage? Like, I should make it clear, I don't actually play this series. I know nothing about Rage beyond the fact that I know it's a post-apocalyptic RTS and probably inspired by Mad Max, given the aesthetic. And I'd like to point out, the one on the left here, Rage 1, I don't know whether or not it's inspired by Mad Max, but I was given that cue by the color palette. The color palette showed me and told me this is probably inspired by Mad Max, because it looks it's post-apocalyptic, yes, but it's got that sickly yellow color that reminds me of Mad Max. It reminds me of the desert. And I've never even seen Mad Max either, but I just know this because I have awareness. And then the freaking one on the right. Oh my god, look how they massacred their boy. Hey, if any Rage fans are watching this right now and they play this game, can you please tell me what happened? Because for the love of frick, what did they do to this game? Like, the only thing the one on the right is missing is the blue, and there's even still a little blue on it, but like, what the frick? I just can't even get over this. Look at these frickin' covers. You know, one of them has the strong, pale, sickly yellow color palette, and it shows that the game knows what it is and what it means and what it wants to do. And the other one looks like a freaking paintball arena after a tournament with two of the three freaking homogenization colors splattered all over the color. Like I just said, magenta and yellow, they're all over it. All over it. There's even a little bit of blue as well. Like, oh my god. Frick me, I've never seen this industry trend so blatant before I saw this. I didn't even realize Rage looked like this until recently. When I was like doing research for this video, I kept running into new games. Like, I was telling my friends I was making this video, and they would show me like, hey, did you know this game is homogenized too? This game that you've never heard of? And I'm like, oh yeah, thanks. Thanks, I'll put it in my little list that's in the end of the script of games that are homogenized, which, by the way, is how I knew which screenshots to add a second ago. But anyway, yeah, back to like, Rage 2. Frick's sake, I don't even need to play these games to know, because I've been given that from visual cues, that the one on the left, Rage 1, is probably good because it has its own identity, it knows what it wants to do, and the second one is almost certainly garbage without knowing anything about it. Yes, I am, and probably safely as well, yes, I am judging a game by its cover. Because the fact that it's doing that is showing me, it's giving me the cue that it's been homogenized, it has succumbed to the industry patterns that I've just detailed, and it's maybe not even a Rage game anymore. I think that was the angriest I've ever sounded on my channel. But anyway, it's important to remember and notice that this is happening everywhere. Like, the entire gaming industry is doing this. I just gave you, what, 7 or 8 or however many. In fact, here, let me scroll down on the text document that I'm currently reading off of for the script, because I have actually a list here of games. That have homogenized colors that I've become aware of. Like, my friends would say, like, oh yeah, I would tell them I was making this video, and they would say, like, oh yeah, have you heard of this game? And that's actually how I found out Rage was like that. So, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 of them, and these are only the ones I know about. And there's 3 more on them. And there's also an extra one that I'm going to mention briefly in just a second because it's in the script. And like, so overall, 16 games. 16 different games that are all doing, 16 different games that are doing this. This is why This is why I don't buy any new games. This is why, because before long there won't even be a freaking good game left to play. This is why I haven't bought a single new game in years. This is why Just Cause 4, I think I don't actually remember how I got Just Cause 4, but I know I either waited for a very low-priced sale or maybe a friend of mine got it for me. But either way, this is why you shouldn't buy new games. I'm going to say it right now. I don't think you should buy new games. This is why, in my personal opinion, I don't buy any new games at all. And this is why, in my personal opinion, everyone needs to immediately stop doing this. Stop buying these games. Stop just giving them a chance to see if they're good to games like, Saints Row 2022, because that's what everyone said before it was a flaming pile of cat litter. Stop saying, it's the new popular thing to games like Fallout 76. Yeah, that one. Or Overwatch 2. Don't even get me started on how those freaking franchises got ruined and pulled scummy things. My god, frick's sake. Stop doing all that. Stop just giving them a chance. Stop saying it's the new popular thing. Stop doing it because, it's on sale or it's free. Stop doing all of those things. And overall, just stop buying new games from AAA companies, because as long as you do, it enables them and it sends them the message that this is okay. Because it is not okay, and they're going to think it's okay as long as their bottom line keeps going up. As long as they continue to profit from doing this crap, then they're going to keep doing it. And if we take a stand and we stop buying new games, just as I have, then maybe in the future, if enough people do it, then something will change. And maybe eventually games will start to have soul and be original and be unique and interesting again. Yeah, I got a bit fired up there for that one, huh? But yeah, the way I see video games as a whole is that they're one of the purest expressions of freedom and imagination that someone can have. When you play a video game, you enter a different world. You wear the shoes of a different person, and within that world and those shoes, you are free to do whatever you can think of, really. Whatever it is you see fit to do, or whoever you want to be, you are free to choose your own path. Free to experience the wonders of being in a different world, whether that world was created by the developers or by you. Free to achieve your own goals, to create your own stories, find your own place, and make your own fun. This is what makes video games so great. They can give you a place to unleash your imagination and let it flow in a way no other media can, and above all, they can help you escape to a place where you can have fun. And you can do whatever you want in them. As I mentioned in the Humanized Security Car rants, games should do that and let you do whatever you want. And yeah, so don't get me wrong here. I'm all for games being entertaining and fun, and I want them to be entertaining and fun, but at the end of the day, they literally cannot do that if they don't have any meaning behind it. A player needs to be invested for all of those things to happen. As an example, if you play, for example, an Elder Scrolls or a Fallout game, you have to be invested in your character and in the story to have fun, because then it means something. It means that you are imagining that you are in a medieval fantasy or a post-apocalyptic world, respectively, and if the game doesn't take itself seriously, you can't build that investment value, and you can't get into the game. And that's exactly what has happened to me with Watch Dogs 2, and that's the entire thing that's happened with the game. That's the entire thing. Hold on, there's a bit more of this paragraph. I went off script again. Hang on, before I go back on script, I want to mention that, yeah, RPGs are a perfect example of this, because RPGs are role-playing games. And what does role-playing mean? It means you play a role. It means suddenly you are not yourself, you are now a different person in a different world entirely. That's everything I just said. And ultimately, and this is a word that I didn't say just then, and what I just said about investment and all that, it means you are immersed. And that's almost exactly part of what makes all of these games, the good ones, all of these games so good, because they give you immersion. It's pretty much, it's a totem pole almost. When they take themselves seriously, it gives the world meaning. It means the characters are invested, which translates to you. It gives you meaning, and it gives you a sense of meaning. I mean, it makes the game mean something to you. It makes you feel invested, because if the characters are invested, then you're invested. And if the characters are not invested and they don't care and it's not a big deal, then it's entirely likely that you also will not care and will not think it's a big deal. So when the characters are invested and when the game has meaning, then that creates immersion. That is what immerses you into the game, and that's what allows you to step into the shoes of a different character. That's the entire thing. That's the totem pole, and at the bottom of the totem pole is the game taking itself seriously. And Watch Dogs 2 does not do that, so the entire thing falls apart. It results in having, and any game, I should mention, any game that does that whole pattern of being colorful and stupid and not taking itself seriously, the entire thing collapses as soon as you do that. And that's kind of, honestly, the entire core of this video and what I'm talking about, is how when games do this, it's terrible. If a game doesn't take itself seriously, then it can't have any meaning, you can't get invested in it, you can't get immersed in it, and overall, it just can't be an experience. It has no soul, as everyone says. It just all completely falls apart, and then at the end of the day, you have someone like me who doesn't give a frick about DedSec at all, because Watch Dogs 2 is a perfect example of this, and it's even the sequel to a game that did it right. Watch Dogs 2 is a perfect example of this, because all the DedSec characters, they just laugh it all off as a joke. They don't take any of it seriously, and they just think it's all the hilarious and ridiculous, and they don't think it's a big deal, and they're all, you know. And so you can't get into it. I can't get into it, and that's exactly why I have more fun not being DedSec. But anyway, after that very unscripted rant, let me scroll down to the appropriate part of the text document. Here it is, and I will get back on script. Come on, we're so close to the end of the script. That was not part of the script, but we are so close to the end of the script. Anyway, on script now. I want to play games that entertain me, yes, but also games that stick with me, whether it's what I brought to the game or what the game brought to me. I want to play games that can let my imagination flow wherever it wants to go. I want to play games that have depth, games that have their own identities and can give me unique, unforgettable experiences even as they entertain me. I want to play games that have meaning beyond just cheap entertainment value. I want to play games that mean something, that aren't just creatively bankrupt, soulless husks. And with the current state of the gaming industry, I don't think I'll be able to do that anytime soon. But hey, at least I can have fun driving a car around the streets of San Francisco blasting Turbo Lover while being chased by the police. So, we have now arrived at the end of the video at long last. The end of the script as well, because now... thank you so much, Framerate Shrug. Because now I will be speaking from the heart. I'm now back in my native element as well. As you can see. Pop, 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 pop. 5 shots. Back in my native element of recording live. Hold on, wait. As much as it's cool to have this car here and everything, probably shouldn't have the flashing blue lights in your face for this sort of final epilogue, sort of. Well, I don't really know, but whatever. Epilogue, whatever you want to call this. Final thoughts. Final thoughts section, yes. So, yes, as we look out over the gleaming, luxurious city of San Francisco, let me just put the camera, not the character, the camera, I like having it there. As we look out over the city of San Francisco, that is it, ladies and gentlemen. At long last, the video that has been affectionately nicknamed the video that has been affectionately nicknamed the Megarant by all my friends. They started calling it that, and then I just decided to start calling it that too. The video that has been affectionately dubbed the Megarant, this massive project that I sunk many hours of my life into, it is at long last finally complete. It is at long last all set and finished. It is currently... Yeah, that's another thing. Speaking of the time that it took to create this video, it is currently September 12th, Tuesday, September 12th, 2023. And all of the narration that you just heard was recorded on November 26th, 2022. Yes. So, I thought this video would take maybe a few months to make. I grossly underestimated it. It turns out it took almost a whole year. But, thankfully, now it is done, and now at long last, everyone can experience my final thoughts and feelings about the state of the gaming industry. And, as a note about that, to summarize my thoughts, because here I am again, this is a very classic username here moment of figuring out the best way to put it after I've already explained it all. The best way to put it all is that when games do this is that games create a sense of character, as in they are in character, like in a play or a show. And when certain elements of the world, or the characters, or the aesthetic, or the art design, or any of the pillars that I mentioned in the Red Faction Guerrilla section of this video, if any of those pillars do any of the things described in this video, then they start to make the entire game, the entire product, break character. And, oh right, yeah, the camera pans. The camera pans if you're idle for long enough. Yeah, sure, I'll let it pan. So yeah, in true username here fashion, I figured out the best way to articulate it after I already finished the Megarant video. The Megarant video is completely done. I finished with all of the fragments recently. I actually finished editing the final product. Now I just have to tack on this extra scene that you're seeing here right now. Well, not really a scene. I have to tack on this extra part of me giving my final thoughts. Oh, I like how the Chicago police car over there is a little bit obscured by the terrain and the concrete. There we go. It's a little bit better now. So yes, this video took a long time and a lot of effort to make. As I said, it was almost a whole year, and I recorded a lot for this. I played through several different games to completion as well. I think maybe 2 or 3 games I played through, start to finish, to completion, for the purposes of this video, of this Megarant. And I recorded several dozens of hours of footage across all different kinds of games. As you just saw, there were all kinds of different games in there. Well, to give you an idea of how demanding this video was to make, not just in terms of time, but also in terms of space and memory and clips, I have a 4 terabyte hard drive, a 3.63 terabyte with 3.63 terabytes of memory space on it after all the formatting details and all that crap. I used pretty much the majority of it for this video. Oh man, I had no idea this video was gonna turn out like this. Like I said, I thought it would just be a few months. Thought it'd be a fun thing to do, fun thing to try on my channel, try and make something scripted and unique with all kinds of different changing scenes and shots and whatnot. Thought it'd take a few months. It took almost an entire year, just about. And it took the majority of a hard drive that had like 2 terabytes on it. So, yikes. Oh, yeah, it's starting to rain. That's actually kind of perfect for this. The rain's kind of perfect for this. I like that. I like it. It gives sort of a cozy feeling right now for the end of the video. And fun fact, actually, here's a very fun fact about just design of anything in general. The fact that it's nighttime is on purpose, actually, because nighttime is a bit cozier. I set it to about midnight, and then I turn the time scale off. Yeah. I also stopped the camera pan because I'm stupid, so let's put it back on San Francisco. Maybe it'll pan again. And, yeah, so, that is it, ladies and gentlemen. That is the final end now of the video that, as I said, was affectionately dubbed the Megarant. Major, massive project on my channel, unlike anything I've ever done before, and I definitely hope I did a good job. I don't care whether or not I did a good job. I do hope I did a good job, but whether or not I did, I actually don't really care that much about that. I mean, I do, but I don't. At the end of the day, what I care most about, though, is for each and every one... That is true, yes, I'll get to that. At the end of the day, though, what I care most about with this video is I hope I was able to provide an entertaining hour and, like, 15 minutes or so. I think that's just about how long it's going to be. That's how long the final time is going to be, just about. I certainly hope. Hope I was able to entertain you for that time. Hope I was able to help you refine your opinions. Hope I was able to give you a good time as you listen to me just completely freaking rant and complain about my opinions. And at the end of the day, though, ultimately, what I hope most, here it is, is for each and every one of you to have the best day, morning, evening, night, afternoon, or any time of day, really, that you possibly can. Thank you to everyone who views my channel, who subscribes, who leaves comments, who likes and even dislikes. Thank you to all of those people. Thank you to everyone who stuck around for all of this time. Like, freaking, thank you so much for giving me 75 minutes of your time, provided you're still here, just to listen to me rant and listen to my opinions on the state of the gaming industry in 2022 and 2023. Thank you so much for that. And what I hope most, though, is... Didn't I say that already? I have never been good with the outros on my channel, ever. There goes the camera panning again. But yes, thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope the gaming industry is able to get back on track at some point and games are able to have character and art direction again. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, but in the meantime, at least we have older games. Like several of the ones that I recorded clips for this video, the good ones. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Username here. And I will, I'll see you later. See you for the next video. See you later.